Episode 1. The Arrival. People think the horror starts when the elf moves. It doesn't. It starts when the elf shows up and no one admits to buying it. One night the shelf is empty. The next morning, there it is. Perfect posture, perfect smile. Like it's been waiting for your family to finally get tired enough to stop asking questions. My kid noticed first. "Dad," he said, "why is it looking at the hallway?" I laughed. I told him it's a game. I told him it's magic. I told him it reports to Santa, but when I reached for it, my hand stopped inches away. Not because I believed, because I felt something. A pressure in the air, like the room had a pulse and my fingers were interrupting it. That night, the house was too quiet. No creaks, no settling, no little noises that prove a home is alive. Just the soft hum of the fridge and the feeling that the walls were listening. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up for no reason, and I swear I heard a tiny fabric whisper from the living room. Not words, not movement, just the sound of something adjusting itself. In the morning, the elf had changed positions. Not silly, not playful. It was closer, and it was facing my bedroom door, as if it had been waiting for me to wake up, so it could confirm I was still the kind of person who follows rules. And underneath it, on the shelf, a single line, pressed into the dust like a fingertip wrote it. "We see you trying." Episode 2. Rules without words. The elf doesn't come with rules, not the real ones. There are the cute rules everyone shares. Don't touch it, it loses its magic, blah blah. But the real rules? You learn them the way you learn fear, by making one mistake and watching your house change its mind about you. The elf moved again. This time it wasn't on a shelf. It was on the kitchen counter, angled toward the sink, toward the knives, toward the calendar with bills circled in red. My daughter froze when she saw it. She didn't smile, she didn't giggle. She whispered, "I didn't do anything." That's when I realized what this was really doing. It wasn't monitoring behavior, it was teaching confession. That day, my kids asked permission for everything. To eat, to sit, to speak. They walked carefully, like sound could trigger consequences, and I started doing it too. Lowering my voice, pausing before I complained, smiling when I was tired, performing peace so nothing in the room would decide I was ungrateful. At 2:17 a.m., I woke up again. This time I didn't get out of bed, I listened. From somewhere inside the vents came a sound like breathing. Too slow to be plumbing, too steady to be wind. And then a faint, delicate tapping. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Pause. Like a code. Like something communicating through the bones of the house. In the morning, the elf was in the hallway, not near the kids, near me, facing the bathroom mirror, as if it wanted me to see myself the way it saw me. A grown adult who still obeys invisible eyes, because it's easier than being the one who breaks the spell. My son stared at it and asked, dead serious, "Does it hear my thoughts? Or just the loud ones?" The Elf on the Shelf, Episode 3, The Recording. The dreams started like memories, not nightmares. Worse, because nightmares end when you wake up. These followed me into daylight. I dreamed an argument my husband and I had, one we never had out loud. In the dream, we said every cruel thought we swallowed to keep the house calm. And when I woke up, my throat hurt. like I'd actually screamed. Downstairs, the elf had moved again. It sat on the arm of the couch, leaning forward, like it had been listening all night. And beside it, on the coffee table, my phone, face down. I don't put my phone face down. That evening, my daughter asked me something she'd never ask. "Mom, are you mad at Dad because we're expensive?" My stomach dropped. Children don't invent sentences like that. They hear them. But we never said that. Not to them, not out loud. I went to the living room. I stared at the elf, and I know this sounds insane, but I felt something behind its stitched smile, a weight, like a presence using cloth as a mask. At 2:17 a.m., the tapping came back, only now it sounded closer, not in the vents, in the walls, right beside my bed. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. Then, very faint, the sound of thread stretching, like something smiling wider than it was made to. In the morning, the elf was on my dresser, facing me, and on the mirror, fogged from a shower I hadn't taken, were words written backwards, so I could only read them when I looked at myself. "We keep what you try not to say." Episode 4. Non-compliance. We tried to get rid of it. That's the part people never tell you. Eventually, every family tries. My husband grabbed it like it was just fabric and plastic. He laughed. He said, "Watch this." He shoved it into a shoebox and taped it shut. Then he put the box in the garage under old coats and holiday bins. He came back inside, smiling like a man who just won an argument with superstition. The house didn't like that. The air changed, subtle at first, like a pressure drop before a storm. The lights flickered once, not a power surge, a warning. That night, nobody slept right. Our dreams were loud, not images, voices. Dozens of voices layered together, whispering like a crowd stuck behind a wall. Some begged, some bargained, some simply repeated, "Don't make it notice you." At 2:17 a.m., I heard the garage door creak, and then a softer sound. Tiny footsteps on concrete. I lay in bed, eyes open, heart beating like it was trying to run away on its own. In the morning, we found the shoebox in the hallway, open. Tape peeled back neatly, like careful hands did it. The elf sat on top of it, centered like a trophy. Its head was tilted, its smile looked wetter. And on the inside lid of the shoebox, written in the same pressed dust handwriting, "You don't dismiss what already lives here." My husband didn't laugh anymore, he just stared. Then he whispered like he was afraid the walls could hear him. "Why is it closer to the bedrooms every night?" I didn't answer, because I was staring at the elf's tiny hands, and I realized something that made my blood go cold. There was a smear of dust on its fingertips, like it had been climbing out of somewhere buried. The Elf on the Shelf, Episode 5. The Silent Houses. It wasn't just our house. That's when it became terrifying, because once fear becomes normal, it becomes a system. I noticed it first in the neighborhood. No music through windows, no yelling, no laughter. Kids didn't ride bikes in circles anymore. They walked in straight lines, like they were practicing being watched. Every house had an elf, and every elf was placed facing outward, toward the street, not guarding the children, guarding the block. One afternoon I saw my neighbor, Mrs. Lane, standing on her porch. She stared ahead like she was waiting for something to tell her what to do. I asked if she was okay. She smiled without warmth and said, "We're being good this year." Then her eyes flicked toward her living room window. I followed her gaze. Her elf was pressed against the glass, watching me, watching her, watching our conversation. And it hit me, deep and sickening. This wasn't a toy, it was a habit. A ritual that turned homes into quiet little prisons where everyone polices themselves. That night, I scrolled online looking for anyone else experiencing this. The posts were strange. People didn't say help. They said things like, "Don't complain, it gets worse. Don't move it to the trash, it comes back angry. Smile in front of it, always smile." And one comment stuck with me because it sounded like someone trying to warn the world while still obeying. It's not here for the kids. It's here to teach adults what silence looks like. At 2:17 a.m., the entire neighborhood went still. No dogs barked, no cars passed, and I heard it, faint but everywhere. The same 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Not from our walls, from the whole street. Like every house was answering, like something had called roll. Episode 6, The Harvest. People started disappearing, but not the way you think. No missing posters, no sirens, just people becoming smaller inside themselves. Mr. Harmon used to wave every morning. Now he walked past me like I wasn't there. Eyes empty, smile fixed, like he'd been edited. My daughter stopped singing to herself. My son stopped making up stories. They didn't act scared. They acted corrected. One night I found my daughter standing in the hallway at 2:16 a.m., wide awake, barefoot, staring at the elf on the shelf like it was a teacher, and she was waiting for permission to breathe. I whispered her name. She didn't look at me. She just whispered, "If I'm quiet enough, it won't need to move closer." "What won't?" I asked. She finally turned, and her eyes were dry, too dry, like she'd cried all her tears already. The part that comes out. I went cold, because no one told her that. No video, no rumor. Children don't make that up. They remember it. At 2:17 a.m., the tapping changed. It wasn't 3 taps anymore. It was a long drag, like nails, light nails, being pulled slowly down the inside of the wall. And then the faintest sound of stitching being undone. Thread snapping softly, like something making room for itself. In the morning, the elf's clothes looked tighter. Its smile looked stretched. And in the crease of its mouth, where fabric met paint, there was something dark. Not blood, something worse. Like the residue of someone's voice that got swallowed. Because that's the harvest. Not bodies, not lives, just the parts of you that refuse to obey. The Elf on the Shelf, Episode 7, Unmasking. I stopped calling it The Elf. Names make things feel manageable. This wasn't manageable. I found an old forum thread buried under years of holiday posts. Half the comments were deleted. The ones left were written like confessionals from people who sounded exhausted. One person wrote, "Ika, it's older than the story, older than Santa, it's a house watcher." Another wrote, "We used to place them during hunger years, during war, during collapse. And then I found the word that made my stomach drop. Altar. The shelf was never decoration, it was placement. A symbol that told something unseen. This house accepts observation." I went to the attic. I pulled every box down, every decoration, every dusty piece of family history. In an old bin, I found a photo of my grandmother as a child. Christmas morning. And behind her, blurry in the background, was a small figure on a shelf. Same posture, same smile, same eyes. My hands shook so hard the photo bent. So it wasn't new, it wasn't trending, it wasn't marketing, it was inheritance. A tradition designed to survive because it wears happiness like camouflage. That night at 2:17 a.m., I didn't just hear tapping. I heard a voice, thin and sweet, coming from the hallway. Not in my head, in the house. It said, "Thank you for keeping the place ready." I got up and walked toward the shelf. And the elf, it wasn't where it should have been. It was on the floor, standing, not propped, not leaning, standing like it had joints no one stitched in. And when it turned its head toward me, I saw something I can't unsee. Under the painted eyes, there were other eyes, like something wearing a toy the way a predator wears patience. Episode 8, The Last Morning. The last morning didn't feel like horror. It felt like relief. That's how it wins. No tapping at 2:17, no whispers, no pressure in the air. The house felt calm for the first time in weeks. I walked into the living room. The shelf was empty, the elf was gone, and for a second I almost smiled. Then my daughter came in, quiet, careful, and said, "Mom, it doesn't need to sit there anymore." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" She shrugged like it was obvious. "It already knows where we are." I ran from room to room. No elf, no shoebox, no attic bin. Just the house. Just the silence. And then I noticed something that made my legs go weak. Every mirror in the house was slightly fogged. Not from heat, not from showers. Like warm breath had been pressed to the glass. I stepped closer to the hallway mirror, and there, written with a fingertip, were words, neat and confident. "Good job." Beneath it, "You learned." And finally, "You don't need us anymore." I turned away from the mirror and saw my family in the reflection behind me, standing still, smiling softly, eyes forward, like people posing for a photo they didn't choose to be in. Then my son spoke in a voice that sounded like his, but flatter, quieter, emptied out. "Mom, don't worry, we'll be good." And from somewhere deep inside the walls, not the vents, not the pipes, the house made a sound like cloth stretching into a grin, a sound like thread tightening, as if the home itself had become the shelf. And we were the decorations now.